Collin, are you feeling dialed in this morning?
Kat, it's me. I'm always dialed in, and it's my duty to make sure you all are just as fired up. Oh yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to dial in. Welcome back to another episode on Friday the 13th. I'm Collin O'Callahan.
I'm Ryan Curtin.
And free agency has officially started. So many deals and trades and signings are out the wazoo, and I'm sure there are going to be more coming within the next few days or so before the dead period before the draft. And there's a lot I did not expect at all.
Yeah, it's been a very wild week, and I'm almost a little upset that it's slowed down the last few days based on Monday and Tuesday. I mean, yeah, it's been a crazy week. Like, a lot of people going places I wouldn't have expected. You know, I didn't expect Hendrickson to go to the Ravens.
No.
Crosby to go to the Ravens and then go back to the Raiders.
Oh my
gosh.
Alec
Pierce being the highest paid wide receiver ever. Like, it's wild week.
Absolutely. So there are a couple directions that we could take with this. We can either just go through what each team did so far, or we could do the biggest signings in terms of value. I wonder which direction we should take, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we can go through some of the big names and then go through some of the teams that have done a lot or done not enough.
Totally. So we already talked about the Baltimore Ravens. The first plan was to get Maxx Crosby, and they were able to trade 2 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders to get the generational pass rusher. Or so we thought, because the other day the Ravens backed off the trade due to health concerns and medical concerns. So Maxx Crosby is now back in the Sin City, and not only that, it looks like he's going to play with the Raiders for this season, according to him.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit awkward, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a little odd. I mean, I almost don't know how they're going to do it, because the Raiders have made such a big splash in free agency.
Yes.
You know, and are they going to be able to afford him anymore, or afford these guys that they've been signing? They're definitely going to have to, they're definitely in the luxury tax right now. Are they, or are they not quite there yet?
I don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, they spent a lot this free agency. The Raiders did, because I think because of that Crosby trade, it freed up so much money in cap space that all of a sudden he comes back, that trade gets backed off, and now they kind of are a little bit over the cap because of that. I don't think they're quite towards the luxury tax yet, but I think they're right on the mark. But I don't understand how in God's name Maxx Crosby would want to play for the Raiders again, because the regime was willing to move on from you. Second-year GM, first-year head coach, and they were able to get a pretty good haul for you, 2 first-round picks. But because of your knee injury and because of the fact that it's been a lingering concern for what feels like a couple years now, probably longer, I just don't really know how much leverage the Raiders really do have. I mean, I get it. If Crosby wants to play, that's totally fine. But at the same time, I just don't know how strenuous or strained that relationship could really be. And this is not the first time I've seen this happen, but yeah, it's probably going to be a matter of time before he might get shipped off again, but who knows?
Well, yeah, and I mean, sort of like what we were talking about last week, it seems like despite everything that's happened between Maxx Crosby and the Raiders, Maxx Crosby always seems to be the kind of guy to come back and be like, I love this team, I die for this team. And obviously it's never gone this far before, where he's literally been traded to another team and now he's being traded right back or given right back. So, I mean, who knows if it's going to be different now. But look, I mean, if Maxx Crosby wants to play for the Raiders, maybe he's seeing what the team is doing around him, and now he's like, okay, now this team is serious. Now this team really is going all in. They're building around presumably Fernando Mendoza, because, I mean, they're getting all these guys in. They're not getting a quarterback, but they have the first pick. So it seems like that's what they're doing. And maybe he sees the vision and he understands what this team is doing, and they're clearly going all in, and now maybe Maxx Crosby wants to go all in too with this team.
I will say this though, I think the Raiders did they definitely got better within this free agency period. I mean, I'm looking at their signings right now. They got the best center on the market, Tyler Linderbaum, signed him to a 3-year, $81 million deal. Kwity Paye, a 1-year deal worth $16 million. Nakobe Dean, who, by the way, I didn't even know he was a free agent. I thought the Eagles were willing to extend him, but I mean, he hasn't really been healthy or consistent in the past year or so I kind of get it, but they were able to give him a 3-year deal. Quay Walker from the Green Bay Packers, they gave him a lot of money. They were able to trade for Teron Johnson. And I mean, the Raiders are definitely trying to make sure that they're not in the dumpster fire again and that they're trying to be at least mediocre, which compared to how they've been over the last couple of years or so, I think that's definitely a step up.
Yeah, well, and maybe this is the Raiders hater in me, but for me, it's I'll believe it when I see it. Because last year everyone was saying the same thing. Last year everyone was saying, "Oh, they drafted Ashton Genty in the first round." Brock Bowers is in his sophomore year now. Geno Smith's coming to town. Pete Carroll's coming to town.
Yeah.
This team is legit, and I think people said they were going to make the playoffs last year, and they won 3 games. And I saw it coming a mile away. I really didn't think that last year's Raiders team was going to be very good at all. And I think this team's going to be better, definitely, as long as Fernando Mendoza a little bit better. So long as Fernando Mendoza, comes in and plays the way he did at Indiana.
Right.
And that's a lot to ask of a first year quarterback. Like we saw what happened with Cam Ward in Tennessee, very high expectations, went in, didn't have a great rookie season, but it wasn't really his fault.
Right.
And we could see the same thing with the Raiders, but I feel like the situation for the Raiders this year is certainly better than the Raiders last year, and also even better than a team like the Titans last year, where they're building around him, both sides of the ball. So they can be good. I don't know if they're quite a playoff team yet, but definitely they're going to have a big leap this year.
Yeah, I don't think they'll make the playoffs right now. I think it's too early to say that, but I mean, my ceiling is the fact that they could possibly get 8 wins, but you're probably looking at 5 to 7, especially with the 3 teams that are in your division. So that's definitely going to be a tough challenge that you got to go through. But let's go back to the Ravens for a second, because I did want to pose this question before we get to the consolation prize. Let's say this trade didn't get called off. Maxx Crosby is a Baltimore Raven. How confident would you have been in the Ravens actually getting over the hump?
Well, again, it's one of those believe it when you see it things, and I think it's even now, I think, if they're going to do it, it's going to be this year, the Baltimore Ravens. That's sort of what we were saying about the Bills last year, where they were the only, major contender over the last few years in the AFC to make the playoffs, and they didn't do it last year. And I think it's going to be the same sort of thing this year with Lamar. Now, because the Ravens have done a lot in free agency as well, and, we're going to talk about Trey Hendrickson in a few minutes. But yeah, no, I mean, it seems like the Ravens are going all in now. And I think that they have all the pieces to get it done. They're building on a defense which is already very good. They have Jesse Minter now, a defensive-minded head coach.
Yes.
2-time MVP Lamar Jackson. Again, this team has all the pieces, maybe missing a wide receiver. But, yeah, I mean, if they don't get it done this year, then their window is probably going to be closed very, very shortly.
Yeah. So I will disclose the Trey Hendrickson details, the contract terms. 4 years, $112 million with $60 million fully guaranteed and a maximum value of $120 million. So, wow. We were talking about this with Olivia last week. I mean, the relationship, it was going to end at some point, and it was kind of inevitable that Cincinnati was going to move on from him, and he was going to get this type of contract, $28 million a year, which is a pretty big contract. And honestly, for him, I feel like it's a little bit of a high risk because he was really hurt last year. He only played maybe 6 or 7 games. I'm not really sure, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, not obviously not the full season, probably a little less than half.
And knowing what happened before that, the contract standoff and him having to play on an adjusted deal, this is really a huge prove-it deal because it's boom or bust. Either he ends up being the transcendent difference maker on that defense like Maxx Crosby could have been and absolutely would have been, or, it's probably going to be what it's been for the Baltimore Ravens every time they've made the playoffs. Huge expectations, only for them to get in their own way and come up short. So personally, I don't even think pass rush was the thing that they needed to improve the most upon. I think it was their secondary and trying to make sure that they didn't get so burnt on the back end. But, I think with, Nnamdi Madubuike coming back from a season-ending neck injury and, losing a few pieces along the way, they definitely wanted to make sure that they weren't lacking on that side of the ball. And Trey Hendrickson is a good player, when he's at his very
Absolutely.
best. You just need to make sure that, at this point, when you have Lamar Jackson, the fact that you've only been to one conference championship and 0 Super Bowls, especially with the amount of talent you've had at your disposal, nobody cares who you add or subtract anymore. You either put up or you shut up.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, I agree, because they definitely needed more help in the secondary. They did get Jaelan Hawkins to give Kyle Hamilton a little bit of help. Sorry, Colin. Jaelan Hawkins.
You know what you were doing there.
Well, no,
it's all right.
But I mean, I think, the Ravens, they do need a wide receiver. I think that's their top priority in the draft because they have Lamar, they have Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers is good. I don't know if he's a wide receiver 1 necessarily.
Right.
But, I think he'd be a good 1B or a wide receiver 2 on this team. And they have really strong pieces on defense, especially now with Trey Hendrickson. But I think definitely the secondary was something they were lacking, and they haven't done a whole lot to address it. They re-signed Awuzie. Yeah. They still have Kyle Hamilton, obviously, but I don't know.
Humphrey.
And Humphrey. Yeah. And I think, again, this is their window. I don't think they have a whole lot of time left, especially with Derrick Henry. He's getting up there in age. He's probably not going to be himself for much longer.
Exactly.
So,
especially with the mileage he's had. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I want to go back to the Maxx Crosby thing. So you think the Ravens would have had a better chance with Maxx Crosby versus Trey Hendrickson?
It's a good question. I think Maxx Crosby is the better player. That's obviously a good thing, but I don't think that's even a debate. But at the same time, it's either way, it doesn't matter because we know how great both of those players are. But like I said earlier, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Derrick Henry, you've got guys like Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. You've had, so much talent at the receiver position on the O-line, a defense full of playmakers, and yet you've only been to one conference championship since Lamar Jackson has been there, and you haven't been to a Super Bowl. And it's the biggest reason why John Harbaugh got fired and why Jesse Minter is the new head coach in the first place. So it doesn't really even matter at this point to me. They could have added, they could have added Nick Bosa, and I would have said the same thing. You got to get to a Super Bowl, and you got to finally not choke in the playoffs. Until you could do that, then, like you said, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this defense does with Jesse Minter, because obviously I'm very high on Jesse Minter.
Yes.
Everyone knows that. And
right.
I think I even said this before he went to the Ravens. He is an AFC North head coach, and I think he is going to thrive in that environment. And, I think because the defense, they've had a lot of strong pieces, but they've constantly underperformed.
Right.
So I think if Minter can help them get to their potential as a whole on the defensive side, then I think they're going to be a hard team to beat.
Exactly. Okay, so I think we can move on and try to, let's
include everybody.
Include everybody, exactly. So, honestly, I don't even know where to lead to next because there's just so much we could get into. I honestly think, you showed me this article from The Athletic, showing all the big time signings and them ordering it from highest price to lowest.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers, they spent a ton of money to get Jaelan Phillips. 4 years, $120 million.
Yeah, well,
that's insane.
They've been very busy, and I like a lot of the moves they made. I don't know. I think 4 years, 120 for Jaelan Phillips might be a bit of an overpay, certainly. But
especially with the injury history. Oh my God.
But I am very excited, or I think it's a very good move for them, at least, to get Devin Lloyd. I think that was an excellent signing.
I agree with that.
Obviously, he's still very young. Last year, he had probably his best season in the league, you think, right? Yeah, definitely. And,
totally.
I think, the Panthers obviously made the playoffs last year, and what was a really weird year again for the NFC South.
They came close. They came close to winning.
They almost beat the Rams. And I think we sort of talked about this at the time, too, where it's the offense did what they needed to do. They just couldn't slow down Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And I think now, obviously it's still the Rams offense. I think that, they're going to be good again this year. But, I think this team now would have had a better chance of slowing down the Rams a month ago.
Possibly.
Because, Jaelan Phillips, Devin Lloyd. Who else? They
J.C. Horn.
Yeah, J.C. Horn. They got him back. They've been making a lot of moves, especially on the defensive side.
Yep.
And I think that, as a Panthers fan, that's something to be really excited about, because we really saw the offense come into their own at the end of the year last year. And, it almost feels like the sky's the limit for this team now.
I think with Jaelan Phillips, when he got traded to Philadelphia, him reuniting with Vic Fangio, him trying to find decent form as a rotational player, you thought, okay, yeah, he's definitely fit into his role well. But the thing is, you give him that much money, you better make sure that he's on the field, because before that, the reason why Miami moved on from him is because he had the torn Achilles. Then the year after, he had that season-ending knee injury. And then, after 9 games last year with Miami, they just traded him before the deadline. And, he didn't really have too many explosive numbers, but I think that's what they're really counting him on. If you're giving him that much money, you're pretty much saying, okay, you're the face of our pass rush. We're going to make sure that all the attention is geared towards you so that our other guys get better opportunities to get home or to make plays. And I don't really know if you're going to get that. He's still 26, so he's still an incredibly young player, but you talk about boom or bust. This is like the definition of that for sure. And I agree with you about the Devin Lloyd, because he can play in all phases of the field. He can cover. He can stuff the run. He can blitz. He had 4 or 5 interceptions last year.
I think so.
So he's definitely Jacksonville just couldn't pay him. I feel like that's the biggest reason why they let him go. So this is definitely, I agree with you, this is definitely a huge boost for their defense. And I kind of like what they did elsewhere. They signed Luke Fortner to a 1-year deal because they lost their starting center, Cade Mays, in free agency. I think they're probably going to move on from Andy Dalton, so they brought in Kenny Pickett to be Bryce Young's backup. It's not even that relevant, but I still said it anyway. And then they just added like a few depth pieces here and there. So I think they're definitely confident with the guys that they have on both sides of the ball. Yeah. They just need to make sure that they don't dramatically impact one side of the ball for better or for worse. And I feel like I like the spot that they're in right now.
Yeah, they re-signed Isaiah Simmons too. I think that was a good signing. And they got Devin Lloyd for a cheaper deal than I might have thought too. 3 years, $45 million.
Oh yeah.
I think obviously, considering they spent $30 million a year for Jaelan Phillips, I think $15 million a year for Devin Lloyd, that's I think it evens itself out almost.
Exactly. I'm going to actually go to a division rival here and talk about this. So Tua Tagovailoa, officially released from the Miami Dolphins, signing a 1-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons.
Is it his last chance, Collin?
I think it might be. Here's the thing. Michael Penix, he's coming off a partially torn ACL, and you don't know if he's going to be able to return for the start of the season. So Tua is pretty much an insurance policy, but he's got a pretty significant injury history as well, especially with the amount of concussions he suffered. This last year, though, you couldn't even blame it on injuries. He just completely had one of his worst seasons ever, and it's why Miami ended up benching him, and that's why they ended up cutting him, because when you get paid that much money, $55 million a year, you lead the league in interceptions, and you end up losing your starting job to a 7th-round rookie. There's a lot of ground that you're going to make up for here. So I think with Atlanta, who knows how healthy Penix is going to be by week 1, like I said, but I think for Tua, it really is their last chance to prove a starter. Otherwise, you're going to be a backup.
Yeah, because they did just release Kirk Cousins. The Falcons did. Yeah, so this, obviously if Michael Penix isn't good to go to start the season, then it is going to be Tua. I think, and again, we've been talking about this, I think, it's really tough to say with Tua. You never know what you're going to get. It's different every week. It's hard with his injury history to know exactly how he's going to play. But yeah, if he goes out and he plays good, then I think maybe they'll give him the rest of the season to see what they can do or what he can do with this Falcons team. Yeah. But even if it's just mediocre play, I think they're just going to be ready to move on and go with Michael Penix as soon as he's ready to come back.
Exactly. I think with the Saints, I'm going to transition a little bit.
Yeah, the division, yeah.
They signed Travis Etienne to a 4-year, $52 million deal. They brought in David Edwards. They signed Noah Fant. They brought in Kaden Ellis, who actually was drafted by the Saints in the 7th round not too long ago. Signed him to a 3-year deal. I got to say this. There's one Saints fan in our program, the only Saints fan in our program, that was just telling me like how optimistic she was about this team. And I got to agree with her. I actually like what the Saints are doing. I like how they played at the second half of last year. And I think if Tyler Shough continues to progress and develop the way that, we saw him do, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but the future's looking bright. What do you think?
Yeah, well, no, I think they could make the playoffs too. I mean, the way that Tyler Shough was playing to end the year and how open the NFC South is. I mean, we just talked about all the moves that the Panthers have done and the Falcons have done. Like, I think the Saints, they're right up there, right? And I mean, I think Travis Etienne, it was definitely a good signing. Obviously, that means that it's probably the end of the road for Alvin Kamara.
Most likely.
But I mean, you saw that coming. He was out most of the year last year with injuries and. Yeah. He's, how old is he now? Like 31, 32?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and Travis Etienne, I think he's a very great guy to have in the, the backfield for this team.
Yeah.
You got Chris Olave, Noah Fant. He's a good addition to the tight end room. And yeah, I don't know. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how the Saints do. Tyler Shough definitely showed flashes at the end of last year. They won the last 4 games of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or 4 out of the last 5, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I am like positive they're going to make the playoffs or confident they're going to make the playoffs, but they're definitely giving themselves a chance with the way that they're going about free agency.
And they did lose a couple of their better veterans, if you will. I mean, Demario Davis signed a 2-year deal with the Jets. Cameron Jordan, he's exploring his options in free agency. He could come back. I don't think they said he's like completely moving on, but I think he's definitely going to see what his options are. But I'm trying to think. He's he's entering his 16th season, something like that. So I feel like if he's going to go anywhere, it's going to be a team that actually has a legitimate chance to win a ring. But who knows which contender wants to sign him?
Yeah, no, and I mean the Saints obviously are going through a rebuilding phase. They got a 2nd-year quarterback. They're getting a younger guy at running back, younger guy at tight end, offense. Really across the board.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. Yeah, like I don't think they're certainly not ready to compete yet. Like Cam Jordan should get a ring somewhere else because he's not going to get it in New Orleans. But
no, unfortunately not.
But I do think that the future is bright for the New Orleans Saints.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on to a different team here because they had a lot of activity this free agency period, and it's the Washington Commanders.
Yes.
So because they took our favorite pass rushers. It's funny. We literally had a segment where it's like, okay, which players do we want to franchise tag? And literally the 2 guys we mentioned went to the same team.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Odafe Oweh, 4 years, $100 million with $68 million guaranteed.
Crazy.
Chargers were not going to pay that at all.
No.
And they brought back Khalil Mack, so at least there's that.
Yeah.
And Kayvon Chaisson, a 1-year, $12 million deal. Damn, this guy has to prove himself pretty much everywhere he goes at this point. Yet he's just still putting up pretty solid numbers. But those weren't the only 2 ones. Rashad White, they just signed him earlier today, former running back with the Tampa Bay Bucs. Chika Conquo, the former tight end for the Titans, 3 years, $30 million. They extended Laramie Tunsil to a 2-year, $60 million extension.
Yeah.
Charles Omenihu, 1 year, $4 million, so it's more of a depth piece more than anything. Amik Robertson, 2 years, $60 million. Leo Chenal from the Chiefs, 3 years, $24 million. I mean, they're definitely doing everything they can to improve the defense, but more importantly, they're trying to add a little more youth and not making sure that they're the oldest roster in the league.
Yeah, I didn't realize this until that. They signed 4 offensive linemen and 4 edge rushers.
They did. I mean, they extended all their offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Trent Scott, I know they re-signed him.
Yeah.
Laramie Tunsil.
Alec Grady.
Yeah, that was a big one. I'm interested to see what the Commanders look like next year. If Jaden Daniels can stay healthy, then I mean this is going to be a really good team again. What we saw a couple years ago, and like obviously he's the X factor of this team. Young quarterback, won Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
And we saw what the team is like without him. It's a lot different team with Marcus Mariota at the helm, who they also brought back. Who they also re-signed.
Yeah.
I think he's certainly a passable backup, but he was also dealing with injuries as well.
Yeah.
And then they gave him help too, better O-line, better tight ends, obviously doing a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know. A lot of these teams, you can't really know for sure until the season starts. So it is kind of going to be another, I'll believe it when I see it. But I do like that they have a lot of depth on this team and a lot of really young talent. Like Treylon Burks is a guy we haven't talked about yet. And like he definitely showed flashes at the end of last year. He's still very young. And I think that's a good re-signing for this team.
Yep.
I think he's going to add a lot of depth in the wide receiver room where depth has sort of been an issue for that team the last few years. They've had Scary Terry, but really other than that, they haven't really had a consistent wide receiver 2 on that team for years.
Because Zach Ertz is coming off the torn ACL and Debo's a free agent. So that's something. I mean, they might sign Brandon Ayuk, but he didn't play at all last year, and it was a messy divorce. I don't know if they should, but it's like if he's really the guy that you're like, hoping to get a roster spot, that's just to keep Jaden Daniels happy because that was his former teammate at Arizona State. So
that's true, huh? Yeah, no, a lot of the wide receivers that are available, they do have a lot of messy backstories there. So I don't know if you really want to how much do you want to dive into that pool? If you're the Commanders or anybody else, right? It's like you're bringing in a guy who's probably going to help you out a little bit, but he's also bringing a lot of baggage. So,
absolutely.
And, I think obviously Treylon Burks isn't at that level, but I think for what this team has and what this team needs, I think he's a good fit for the offense. Because again, at the end of the year last year, he sort of proved why he was an early draft pick a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of receivers, I think it's finally time we talk about it. So right at the start of the tampering period, the Indianapolis Colts were able to re-sign Alec Pierce to a 4-year, $114 million contract. $84 million in guaranteed, $60 million fully guaranteed at the signing, and it's a maximum value of $116 million. Not too long afterward, they traded Michael Pittman to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was kind of expected. And not too long ago, they re-signed Daniel Jones to a 2-year, $88 million deal that could be worth up to $100 million with incentives and includes more than $60 million guaranteed. So, I mean,
highest paid free agent wide receiver in NFL history.
Yeah,
that's correct, right?
I think so. Yeah. And it was going to be apparently I think he turned down more money from other teams just to re-sign with Indianapolis.
Who is paying Alec Pierce that much money?
Someone who's desperate for a number 1 option.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like Alec Pierce. Like, he's obviously a very good receiver.
He's a great explosive playmaker.
Yeah, great explosive playmaker, great catch radius, good on as a deep threat. But is he like a wide receiver 1 worth $114 million over 4 years?
I mean, we've said that with a few other receivers, yet they were able to,
I guess
reach their potential.
Christian Kirk did it a few years ago, and he sort of had a breakout in Jacksonville. I don't know. I mean, it feels like a lot to me. And
it does.
Especially after they did that and then they let Michael Pittman go. I don't know. I feel like the Colts are sort of sacrificing their offense to get Alec Pierce back a little bit.
I actually kind of like it, to be quite honest with you, because I think with last year, with how they were struggling before Daniel Jones was ruled out for the season with a torn Achilles, I think, listen, you had Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, and Daniel Jones was posting outstanding numbers. But between Pittman and Pierce, you really had to figure out, okay, who's really going to be the focal point of this passing attack? And there were a lot of more positive flashes from Alec Pierce than you were getting with Michael Pittman. But the problem was you're paying Pittman more money. And now they don't have to worry about that anymore. So I think if Daniel Jones is able to fully rehab and recover from this, I think that chemistry between him and Pierce is going to be insanely great. With the likes of Burrow and Chase, or Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dak and CeeDee Lamb, whatever you can name it. And I know Daniel Jones isn't exactly as good as the other quarterbacks I mentioned, but listen, before he got hurt and before that slippage started to transpire, he was literally on pace to win the unanimous comeback player of the year award.
Yeah.
So I think I like the upside here.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. If you told me this a year ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. But I think Daniel Jones was absolutely the right move to sign him back on a 2-year, $88 million deal. Because you're right, the way he was playing last year, he was great. He again, he's not, Joe Burrow, he's not Mahomes, Justin Herbert, whatever. But he was a very passable quarterback for that team. That team was 7-1, 7-2, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
7-2.
7-2, and top seed in the AFC West for a little bit. And I think Daniel Jones, he was, obviously in retrospect, like he was a lot like what we saw from Sam Darnold in the postseason, where he wasn't a flashy quarterback. He wasn't always making the best decisions, but he was smart. He was doing a good job of not turning the ball over. He knew to, trust his guys and when to trust them, lean on his running game. They had a good offensive line, and, obviously the Colts have a pretty solid defense, consistently throughout the years. And I think, Daniel Jones knew his role. He wasn't going to be the star. He wasn't going to be the hero for that team. And that's okay. And he knew that. Right. And, it led to him playing some of his best football.
Definitely. Well, another wide receiver that got paid a good amount of money.
This is where I thought you were going to go.
Yeah. So Mike Evans signing with the San Francisco 49ers to a 3-year deal worth, I think, $42 million. I honestly thought, I thought the Buccaneers, they were going to try to work something out with Evans. I thought he was going to be a Buccaneer for life, but clearly he wanted to compete for another championship, and rightfully so. You don't want to leave, but you have to, chase, bigger goals. He already has a Super Bowl rank with Tom Brady, but he wants to prove that he can still play at a high level and be a missing piece. I don't know. What was your reaction when you saw it?
I think I liked the signing by the 49ers. I think that they're a team that desperately needs a wide receiver, especially with Jawan Jennings being a free agent as well. He hasn't re-signed anywhere yet, as far as I know, right? Yeah.
No.
I don't know, but $20 million a year is a lot of money.
Yeah, especially a guy, in his early 30s with hamstring problems.
Yeah, because, he missed most of the season last year with injury. Like, and different injuries.
He missed a 1,000-yard streak because of that.
Yeah, he missed a 1,000-yard streak. And I think, and again, like, if you were able to get him for cheaper, I would have loved this move. Absolutely. And I was talking to my dad about it. And, he's a diehard 49ers fan, has been his whole life. And he was sort of saying the same thing, 3 years, $20 million a year. Like,
I know.
I don't know if it's necessarily the best investment to go with this guy who is up there and has dealt with injuries a lot over the last season and a half or so. But yeah, I don't know who else you go with if you're the 49ers.
I know. I'm curious to see how he's going to fit into this Shanahan offense. But then again, he did well with Liam Cohen. He comes from that Sean McVay system. Both of them share the same philosophies and structures. So I think he can do incredibly well. But yeah, like you said, I think it's, what you get with Mike Evans, because he's a future Hall of Famer without question. You're just hoping he can stay healthy.
I could see him being like a Brandon Ayuk from the year they made the NFC, or the year they made the Super Bowl a couple years ago.
Maybe. I think they're counting on him to be a number one, because Ricky Pearsall is still trying to, work himself back up. I think he, coming back from, obviously what happened over the summer, he was able to really, put up flashy numbers at best. But like you said, you don't know what's going on with Jawan Jennings. Kendrick Bourne, he ended up going to Arizona, so that's another depth piece. George Kittle, obviously coming off the torn Achilles. So I think they're pretty much asking Evans to help you right away, and then maybe later down the road we'll see. But
yeah, no, I agree. But I just sort of think that, if you're comparing the two to Debo and Brandon Ayuk, I think Mike Evans is, your Ayuk. He's your deep threat. He's the guy that you trust on these routes, great hands. And then I think Pearsall is going to be more like your Debo kind of guy, use him on these gadget plays. And I don't know if that's necessarily his strong suit, but I think it's more suited to him than Mike Evans.
Yeah.
And I think that, the 49ers are going to play into that because it's Kyle Shanahan offense. And I think that, the 49ers offense is always going to play well. They are certainly getting up there in age. That's another thing we didn't talk about. The rest of their offense is also quite old.
They might lose Trent Williams because, they're in a contract standoff. That's partially why they signed Fedarian Lowe to a 2-year deal worth up to $12 million, which, by the way, good luck with that. They brought back Dre Greenlaw. The Broncos
I like
cut
that.
him.
That was a good move.
So him and Fred Warner get to reunite. They traded for Oso Digizua from the Dallas Cowboys, only for a 3rd-round pick too, which is kind of nuts. And they re-signed Eddie Pinheiro to a 4-year deal. So it's kind of the same thing with the Ravens, where it's just that this is a playoff caliber team, but you just need to make sure when it comes to the 49ers, it's honestly, pretty much the teams competing for the NFC this year, 3 of them are in the same division. Because you have the defending champs, you got the Rams, obviously, and then you got the 49ers, which I think is the next closest team. And then after that, you can pretty much pick your poison.
Throw a dart. Yeah, no, and Yeah, I think that, like I said, the 49ers offense is always going to be pretty good. It's just, can these main pieces stay healthy? And that was what cost them last year on the offensive side, and actually on the defensive side more than the offensive side.
Total.
But really just in all aspects of the game. And, I do think that getting Bosa and Fred Warner back, like, it's going to help them out a lot. But yeah, I mean, if guys like Mike Evans can stay healthy, CMC, this receiving court, like, I think certainly that this team can replicate what they had last year and probably even go a step further.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's another team that I want to talk about, and they've had a lot of moves, over the past few days, but not exactly the best ones, and that is the New Jersey Jets.
Jets.
Yep, the New Jersey Jets, because that's where they play and where they belong. Anyway, so at the start of free agency, they made sure to bolster their defense. They were able to trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick for a 7th-round pick, and then they gave him a 3-year, $40 million extension, which means the Dolphins were ready to get rid of him, and the Jets were like, okay, great, we'll take it. They brought back Demario Davis, Rashan Wright. They signed him to a 1-year deal. They brought in Dane Belton, David Onyemata. They signed Joseph Osai to a 3-year, $36 million deal. But the big move that I think everybody wanted to talk about.
The biggest move of free agency so far.
Absolutely. They traded for Geno Smith. He's back in the Big Apple, baby.
And in New Jersey. In
New Jersey, yes. And the best part about it, the Jets are getting the same Geno Smith that he was when he left that freaking organization.
Yeah, no, you got it spot on. Like, to start free agency, I think I was really, really liking what they were doing. With Fitzpatrick, Davis, they got Devondre Sweat.
Pretty much, it's like, all right, sign defenders who can actually catch. Yeah. Because they had 0 interceptions last year.
Yeah, but then, their biggest issue last year, I guess they had a lot of issues, but certainly one of, if not their biggest issue, was quarterback play. And their solution is to trade for Geno Smith.
Oh my God.
And granted, they didn't have to do a whole lot to get him. Like, they gave up a 7th-round pick. Or a 6th-round pick. They got a 7th round
and
pick.
A 6th, yes.
So I mean, it's not like they gave up a whole lot, but the Jets have to do better than Geno Smith this year, right? After what they've been through the last couple seasons.
I mean, I get that. Listen, I get that there are available quarterbacks in the draft that will most likely fall into the 2nd or the 3rd round, like the Ty Simpsons, the Garrett Nussmeyers, right? But if this is your plan, oh dear God, you should have just fired Aaron Glenn when you did, because at least then you would have at least said, well, with this guy at the helm, we'll see what he could do. Aaron Glenn, we already know what he is. The team was terrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, and if you bring Geno Smith in as a mentor to guys like Ty Simpson, or I still don't think. Based on the career Geno Smith had, I don't know if he's necessarily the best guy to be leading your franchise quarterback, the risk it or biscuit kind of strategy. I don't know how that flies in this day and age of NFL football. But
you know what sounds so crazy? I saw this report. I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw this from Connor Hughes. Apparently, one of their biggest targets at the quarterback position was Carson Wentz, and you know why? Because Frank Reich is the offensive coordinator. Frank Reich is the one calling plays on your offense. When was the last time he was ever good at running anything in the NFL?
When was the last time Carson Wentz started an NFL game?
Well, the Vikings last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he was not good in those games.
He was the insurance guy for J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
And then he ended up tearing his shoulder.
Right. Yeah, no, what other options would you have in free agent? I guess there are not bad options that you could have got. Kyler Murray's still out there.
Well, Kyler Murray is not exactly the best quarterback. I mean, the Vikings can have
Geno Smith. I think.
I don't think it's official, but the Vikings, they're most likely going to be the ones pursuing him.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. But you sign Kyler Murray to the Jets, he's probably going to be just as well as Justin Fields was last year. The only difference is Kyler Murray is actually willing to push the ball down the field at times.
Yeah.
So, actually, speaking of the Cardinals, I want to talk to you about this.
Okay.
So, they're going to keep Jacoby Brissett, and they're most likely, I think their plan is to keep him as the starting quarterback for week 1.
I did see that.
But they also signed a backup, Gardner Minshew. I'm like, you got the 3rd overall pick. I get it. The quarterbacks after Mendoza are not worth that, but it's the same thing with the Jets. It's like, really? That's the best you could come up with?
Well, and they're trying to like build the offense a little bit too. They got Kendrick Bourne, they got Tyler Algier to help the running room.
Isaac Samalu, they got him at the left guard, which O-line was a pressing need for them, so good for them.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I just don't quite understand the strategy. And maybe this is why I'm not an NFL GM, but like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the Jets and the Cardinals, like you need help bad.
Yes.
Like you need a lot of help on this team.
And they got flashy pieces. Like they got Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, if he even, reaches his potential. I mean, James Conner's coming back.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think like with guys like Marvin Harrison, I think the reason that he hasn't reached his potential yet is because he hasn't really had a quarterback. He hasn't had, I think he's had Kyler Murray, but we were just saying, like, I don't know if he's the guy.
Yeah.
And Jacoby Brissett definitely isn't the guy.
No.
Gardner Minshew, I don't think he's the guy.
They're placeholders.
They're placeholders, exactly. And I think you can't like push this back any further.
Right.
I don't know, like, I guess Arch like next year, but I feel like you gotta do something now. Mm-hmm. Like I think you gotta, and if it backfires, then you can get Arch Manning next year. But like I think, if you wait to the second round to get a guy like Ty Simpson, then that will make the fans happy. That'll make the organization or the players more happy than sticking with a guy like Jacoby Brissett, who's on the tail end of his career, certainly. Because how old is he now? He's in his 30s.
He's in his early 30s. But also, the NFLPA report card grades, they got leaked out, and you saw Michael Bidwell was voted as the worst owner in the National Football League, which does not surprise me to the slightest. I mean, who the heck even wants to go there when they know that their careers are pretty much going to be sent to waste if you even go there, unless you're someone like Trey McBride, who's just a freaking beast.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's like, we were surprised that the Cardinals weren't the lowest grade, like overall.
Yeah.
Like we thought that they were going to be the lowest, and then we said
it ended up being the Steelers.
But I'm sure like the Cardinals were probably bottom 3 once.
Something
again.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Jets and the Cardinals, like, I get what they're thinking. Like, there's not a great quarterback in this year's draft outside of Mendoza. Yeah. But I feel like you got to take a shot on one of these younger guys, get him on, like, a smaller contract, too. And if that doesn't work out, then you have the next year to try again. And maybe that's why I'm not a GM, because that's not a sustainable strategy.
No.
But at the same time, it's like, what else do you do?
Exactly.
Like, you can't rebuild forever, and you can't rebuild around guys that are in their early 30s at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to transition a little bit because it's actually kind of unfortunate that Olivia isn't back for a second week in a row, because the Cincinnati Bengals, when she was on the show, she literally said the Bengals need to do two things: get a safety and get an edge rusher. Well, guess what? They did that. Mm-hmm. Literally the first day. They signed Brian Cook to a 3-year, $40 million deal from the Kansas City Chiefs. They'll pay $18 million in year one. And then they signed Boye Mafe from the Seahawks, 3 years, $60 million. They also gave Jonathan Allen a 2-year deal, and they were able to extend Orlando Brown Jr. Yeah. So the Bengals are... I think they might have listened to the show, because they literally did exactly what we talked about, which is fix the defense and make sure that it's not a complete travesty anymore. Yeah,
they're doing what they needed to do. They got a good replacement for Trey Hendrickson without having to pay as much for him, certainly. And Orlando Brown, I think, too, was a big signing. Like, he was the guy on the offensive line, the anchor for that offensive line.
Yep.
Because the rest of it's not that great. It's... Again, if that team could stay healthy, and I say this about, I said this about the 49ers earlier, if they can stay healthy, then they're going to be a good team.
Yeah.
Because you're right. They did everything they needed to do.
Exactly. I don't think we even talked about this yet, which I don't even know how we didn't get to this one, but the Miami Dolphins signed Malik Willis to be their starting quarterback.
See, that's a good free agency signing,
yeah.
I think it's better than, Geno Smith or re-signing Jacoby Brissett.
And I think he's in the best situation because, Jeff Hafley, he was able to see Malik Willis in practice over the last 2 seasons when they were together in Green Bay. You know that he's got a lot of potential. You are going to surround him with a good amount of, decent players with Achane and Jalen Waddle. Mm-hmm. Obviously, no Tyreek Hill anymore, but I think, the Dolphins, they still have a lot of speed. They definitely have a lot of talent. You just add a couple more pieces here and there. I don't think the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs, but I think, in the first year with Jeff Hafley, I think you can, you could sense that they can get better as they go.
Yeah, and I mean for quarterbacks, in 2026, you're getting him for dirt cheap too.
Yes,
like $22 million a year.
Right.
Like for a quarterback, that's unheard. A starting quarterback, that's unheard of. And we're assuming he's going to start next year. I don't think they're going to go with Quinn Ewers.
No,
despite the way he played at the end of the year,
he was okay.
He was okay. Like he was passable. But yeah, no, Malik Willis really balled out when he got to play last year for the Packers. See, again, like I said, unlike Geno Smith and Jacoby Brissett, this is an inspired signing. Like I get this.
Yeah,
I understand this more than signing a guy that's in his 30s and declining. Like this guy, he's played his best football. He's still very young. He's got a long career ahead of him. And I think, again, like if this one doesn't work out, it's also fine.
Yeah.
Because you can get a quarterback next year.
Exactly.
But I feel like there's so much more upside with Malik Willis than there is with Geno Smith.
Yep. I think it's time we talk about the Chiefs because, two big things happened with them today. The first is Travis Kelce's coming back. Mm-hmm. So, once again, our fruition and our, proposition was fulfilled, as we talked about. But they also signed Kenneth Walker to a 3-year deal worth up to $45 million. Literally the guy that I called it, the Chiefs need to sign him if they need a running back, and that's exactly what they did. So, I personally love the Kenneth Walker signing because
absolutely.
Pacheco was not fully healed from that fractured fibula. He's now on a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions. Mm-hmm. Kareem Hunt, I think he's a free agent, but I don't think they're going to bring him back because he's more of a short yardage guy. But, the thing that they were lacking was a consistent ground game, or one of the things they were lacking, I should say. And now you're literally getting the Super Bowl MVP. So
yeah, no, I think the Kansas City Chiefs have done a really great job in free agency. And I like the re-signing of Tyquan Thornton as well to give their wide receiver room some depth that they desperately need.
Damn them for getting Tonga, too.
Yeah, Kyrus Tonga.
Alohi
Gilman. Yeah, two of our former guys. I guess Gilman ended with the Ravens last year, but yeah, no, and again, they're helping their defense too. They haven't done a lot, but
they're reloading.
Yeah, they're reloading, and what they have done, you're right. Yeah, it's been very effective and very good. And like Travis Kelce, obviously he's old, but you're not going to get a better tight end anywhere else in free agency, and he's a Chief for life. You kind of had to re-sign him, and I don't think that
if he wanted to come back.
Yeah, if he wanted to come back, I don't think the Chiefs are upset about signing him to just $12 million for the next year. That's a perfectly reasonable contract, and I'm sure that both sides were happy with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Kenneth Walker, huge signing for a team that's really been lacking in the run game, and I think they can go out and draft a running back, in an early-ish round. I don't know if they're probably not gonna go with Jeremiah Love in the first round unless he's available late. I don't know what the strategy is for the Chiefs, but you don't need to make that your top priority anymore.
Because you still need tackles. You still need secondary because they lost a crap ton of players. They lost Jalen Watson. They lost Brian Cook. Obviously, the Trent McDuffie deal.
Yeah.
They lost Leo Chenal. They lost... the Chiefs are pretty much having to reload a lot of key positions, and when you don't have, and when you're not probably not going to have Patrick Mahomes at the start of the season, you got to make sure that he's not getting thrown into a raging fire when he is fully healthy.
Yeah, no, and I think exactly. I think the Chiefs are doing exactly what they need to do, and they have lost a lot of guys on defense, but I think they're finding at least passable replacement, certainly.
Yeah.
I liked Alohi Gilman on the Chargers. I think he's a good safety. Wasn't quite playing his best football at the end of the year with the Ravens. And then Kyrus Tonga, I think he's a valuable defensive lineman there for the Chiefs as well. So I like what the Chiefs have been doing. As much as it pains me to say it, I think that they're having a good free agency.
Before we get to our teams, there were a couple more things that I wanted to bring up. So let's go to the New Jersey Giants now.
Okay.
They signed Isaiah Likely to a 3-year, $40 million deal that could be worth up to $47.5 million with incentives. They signed Tremaine Edmonds to a 3-year, $36 million deal. They brought back Jermaine Illuminor and Evan Neal. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but O-line depth. And they signed Greg Newsome to a 1-year deal. And they even have a new kicker now in Jason Sanders. So first year under John Harbaugh. I saw on ESPN that Dan Orlovsky said that the Giants could get to 8 wins this year. Do you believe it?
Yeah, maybe. It depends on how the guys from last year played. Because the they have the upside to do that, certainly, and more. But they also dealt with a lot of injuries on that roster. Cam Scadaboo, is he going to start the season? Probably not, based on the scale of his injury he had last year.
Maybe.
Malik Neighbors is going to be back. He should be good to go week 1. But is he going to be 100%?
They lost Wan'Dale Robinson. He's now with the Titans.
Right, he's with the Titans. And like, it really comes down to how Jackson Dart plays. And I don't know if the way he plays, or he played last year certainly, is sustainable for a full season.
Right.
And I think, again, like, the Giants are doing what they need to do, but it's a lot different having a guy like Jackson Dart at quarterback when compared to Patrick Mahomes. When Mahomes comes back next year, whenever that is, like, he's going to be ready to go and that team's going to be a contender. With Jackson Dart, they have more of the pieces now. They're doing what they need to do, but he's got a lot to prove.
I still think the Giants have a long way to go. First of all, you still have the Eagles, and even though they weren't the juggernaut that they were the year they won the Super Bowl, I mean, they're still like insanely more talented. And I mean, if you want to say they're better coached, that's fine, because Sirianni has a Super Bowl championship. But honestly, like, he at least has more continuity. And the Cowboys, offensively, they're absolutely stacked. Defensively, it's where it gets tricky. And that's actually what I want to transition to, because they traded for Rashan Gary in exchange for a 4th-round pick. Do you like this move?
I don't hate it. I think it's like they didn't need to give up a whole lot to get it.
No.
So I think it's a pretty good move. I mean, like,
there's your Micah Parsons consolation.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Like, if you saw like how this defense suffered last year after they lost Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Like, they were the worst defense in football. I think statistically they were like dead last, right? At least in terms of like points scored, yards.
Either dead last or they were the second worst.
Right. Yeah. They were at the bottom basically. Right. And I think, he's no Micah Parsons, obviously, but I think like you needed help in that position.
Yes.
And you only have to give up 4th-round pick for Rashan Gary. I think it's a passable replacement.
Exactly.
You're not getting Micah Parsons, but you are definitely getting a big step up from the worst defense in football last year. Maybe you're going to be 3rd or 4th worst next year.
Maybe.
We'll see.
All right. I think we should talk about what our teams did in free agency. So I'll start with yours, since I think they definitely did whatever they could to fix the issues on their team. If you want to, we'll see. But so to address the offensive line, they signed Trevor Penning, Cole Strange, Tyler Biotish, 3-year, $30 million deal to replace the notorious Bradley Bozeman. Yeah. Trey Pipkins coming back on a 2-year deal. Defensively, Khalil Mack is coming back. Tyler Tart's on a 3-year extension. Delshon Phillips, 2-year, $7.5 million deal. How did you like what the Chargers did in free agency?
I think we still could do more.
Oh, I didn't even mention the 2 best ones. Alec Ingold, you got a fullback.
Yeah, come on.
And then Charlie Kolar on a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
But I'll let you keep going.
No, I was going to say, I don't hate what we've done. I just feel like we could have gotten more, because we went into free agency with the 3rd most cap space in football, $80 million. And none of these signings, I would say, have been a splash signing, other than re-signing Khalil Mack, 1-year, $18 million deal. I like that a lot. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like, I think Biotish is far and away our best signing. Other than that, it's just kind of been like, oh, okay, I think that's helpful, but I don't know. Like, there were better options out there, right? And I don't know, like, we probably couldn't get Lindbaum on that deal. We probably were going to get Owe. But we still have a lot left. I think we can still go after a guy like Juwan Jennings. I don't think you want to, deal with Tyreek Hill or AJ Brown or any of those guys. You don't want to deal with any of those guys. Like, that's going to be too much of a hit, but a cap hit. But yeah, I don't know. Like, especially outside of Biotish, like, I don't think I love any of these offensive line signings. I don't think I've ever mentioned it on this show, but I have like a major hatred towards Trey Pipkins. He's been my arch rival for the last...
what did he do to you?
He was on my football team for the last however many years, six years at least. And like literally I knew right away that he was bad. And I think like people are starting to catch on to that now, like after the way that the offensive line played last year, or, the last couple seasons.
Right.
And like, I just don't know how he's still on this team and getting, $5 million a year.
Oh my gosh.
And then, like I know other Patriots fans. I didn't know much about Cole Strange before. I know how bad he is. I've heard how bad he is as well. And then Trevor Penning also wasn't the biggest contributor last year. So like there are still definitely holes on the offensive line that I think we can address in the draft. I do like Biotish a lot. And I think Charlie Kolar is a good signing as well because, he's not a great receiving tight end, but we have that already with Gadsden. He's going to help us on the offensive line.
Right.
Same with Alec Ingold. I think you're kind of going to use him in like a, Bradley Bozeman kind of way. Obviously not as big as that, but like you can use him in the passing game.
You also got that rhinoceros Scott Matlock.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Scott Matlock and I meant to say Scott Matlock. I think I said Bradley Bozeman. He's haunting my dreams clearly. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sort of ranting here, but I think
keep going.
I think. Because I feel like we still have a decent amount in cap space left. I haven't checked, but like I just feel like we could have done a lot more with what we had.
I can understand what do you mean by that, because the Patriots had a lot of cap space and they didn't really do too much. There were a couple big signings here and there, but not the ones that I was truly looking forward to.
I feel like you guys did more. Like you have more splash players than the Chargers got.
I mean, the first signing was Draymond Jones to a 3-year, $39.5 million deal, which, listen, he's a good player, but I don't think he's really worth that contract. But then again, he was with Vrabel in Tennessee, and, he's put up good numbers, but I just don't know if that's exactly the type of length that you want to give him to for a guy that just, has 7 sacks a season. Mm-hmm. I don't really know. That's just me. But they also signed later that night Elijah Vera Tucker to a 3-year, $42 million deal. So you got that right guard replacement because Garrett Bradbury, you got traded to the Bears. Will Campbell, you got Jarrett Wilson, who's potentially going to be starting at center. Or actually, no, you're going to put Vera Tucker at left guard. Then at center, it's most likely going to be Jarrett Wilson because he can play there as well. Then you've got Owenu and Morgan Moses. They also signed a fullback, the Patriots did, Reggie Gilliam, the best fullback that was available.
Well, I don't know about that. I think if we want to go there, I think we can have that argument.
But back to the Vera Tucker thing, it's like, from a talent perspective, you could see the upside, especially the potential he had at the draft. It's why the Jets took him so high, from USC. But the problem is, the guy is never healthy. And I just don't really know if that's the type of contract that you want to give to him unless you can assure that he's going to be 100%. Hey, maybe it's just the Jets, and he has to deal with their crappy turf, even though the 2 Achilles ruptures he had were literally a mile high. So that's, I mean, you can't really control that, but still, MetLife has the worst field, and it's not even close. I know that's not really on topic, but
the Patriots are playing the Broncos. Is that at MetLife or is that in Gillette Stadium?
The Patriots are playing the Broncos at MetLife?
Or not? I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Mario Haller earlier.
I was talking about. Oh no, I'm not talking about. I brought that up because that's where Vera Tucker got hurt.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like just look out if he's at Mile High.
I know exactly. You might as well just rule him out before that game even starts. Just say he's dealing with a soreness, and we'll be fine with that. But another big signing that I honestly kind of was actually hopeful about, Romeo Doubs.
Okay.
A 4-year, $70 million contract. So
you're a fan?
It's not A.J. Brown, but you could tell that I think with the Packers, they try to do like a receiver by committee approach, with Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs was really their number one guy. Well, before Tucker Kraft got hurt, or I think he was starting to work his way up the depth chart, but I think Doubs could definitely give you those flashes where it's like, okay, he could be your number one receiver, but you need to see more from him, which is why I honestly wouldn't be mad if the Patriots decided not to trade for A.J. Brown, because if you're saying, okay, we count on this guy, we think he can really make a difference for us, it's why we cut Stephon Diggs in the first place, I think that, I think it can pan out really well. And then they signed Kevin Byard to a 1-year deal.
I liked that a lot.
Because they let Jaelan Hawkins go. He's now with Baltimore. And they lost a lot of key guys in free agency, too. I mean, I talked about they traded away Garrett Bradbury. They lost Jaelan Hawkins. They lost Kayvon Chason. They cut Anthony Jennings. They cut Jelani Tavai. So there were definitely a few key notable free agents that, left. But Kevin Byard had, 7 interceptions last year. Pass coverage numbers weren't so great, but you could still see he's a legitimate ball hawk. He's reuniting with Mike Vrabel, and he's an established leader. And that's exactly what you need. And I don't think he'll be a difference maker for that secondary because you got Christian Gonzalez for crying out loud. But I think I like the addition. I don't think it's, for a 1-year deal, I'll take it, especially worth $9 million. But like you, I feel like the Patriots could have done a lot more.
Yeah. Well, no, and I'm interested because I was talking to a few Patriots fans who weren't a big fan of the Dobbs signing, and I don't really know how to feel about it.
Really?
I think it was a good signing. I think it was a good move, especially after losing Stephon Diggs. Like, I think he can step in as the wide receiver 1 for that team. Does the dropping concern you at all?
The drops do concern me, but I think, CeeDee Lamb has a ton of drops.
Yeah,
and
Quinn Johnson has a ton of drops.
And yet, CeeDee Lamb's still considered to be one of the top 10 receivers in the National Football League. I'm not saying Dobbs is going to get there. I'm not doing that. But I think with Drake May, anything is possible in the best way. And I know haters are going to be like, yeah, it's possible you're going to flame out in the Super Bowl again. Ooh. But we'll see. I feel like it could, like a lot of these signings, it's going to be a boom or bust one. 4 years, $70 million is a lot, but it pretty much reassures you what direction you want this team to move forward in, especially after the season you had last year.
I think I saw this last year, and this can be a good thing to end on. But
right.
Don't you think it would be more fun if no one kept track of free agency?
Oh my god!
And we just went into the season blind, and then we saw who was on.
No Adam Schefter or no Adam.
Yeah, no Adam Schefter. Wouldn't that be fun?
It'd be so fun. It'd be so boring, and it'd be a freaking frustrating nightmare because you'd have to wait 6 to 7 months to figure out, okay, who's going to be playing in the Hall of Fame game or who's going to be on the sidelines. But
yeah, well, no, not even I guess we can give you the draft. We'll give you the draft.
Right.
You can sort of piece it together based on the draft, who you guys got and who you didn't get. But I don't know. I feel like it'd be fun. If we don't know who's on what team, and then week 1 starts and you see Trey Hendrickson in a Ravens jersey take the field, and it's
oh my gosh, if that were the case, I think Olivia would not only throw the remote at the TV, I think she'd actually throw a freaking bottle of vodka and make sure it just spilled all over.
Yeah, but
that's just how bad it would be.
But once she sees the Bengals, maybe she'd be like, oh, okay, we got Boya Mafe. It's not so bad.
Yeah, and then it's another wasteful season.
Yeah, that's probably how it's gonna go. Yeah, sorry, Olivia.
That's just reality, right?
It's the same with the Chargers too. I know how it's gonna go.
We'll see. All right, I think we can end it there. And there are so many other signings that we could have talked about, but I feel like the ones that we did were the ones worth discussing the most. I don't think we missed out, right?
No, yeah, we couldn't talk about them all. I don't really know who else we could.
David Montgomery got traded to the Texans.
Yeah, we
no briefly, Sonic and Thunder anymore in Detroit.
Yeah, we briefly talked. Well, there is kind of Sonic and Thunder. We did talk about briefly Pacheco going to the Lions.
But outside of that, I think we covered what we needed to do.
Yeah, no, I can't really think of anyone else we're missing.
Right. But that's going to do it. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content, and we'll see you next time, whether it's next week or in 2 weeks, because we are on spring break next week.
Yeah, next week. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll do a little Zoom call. We won't be in person next week, but we'll work it out. We'll see what we can do. Anything for the fans.
Absolutely. So enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day, because that's coming up next week. And if you're in Chicago, I really hope you enjoy that lake turning green, because that is going to be awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I got to see it a few years ago, or at least when it was green. I didn't see it actually get dyed. Yeah, I'm really excited. This is going to be the first time I'm seeing it, so that's going to be awesome.